what's up, you guys? My name is Snow, and welcome back to LEGO Arts. So in the last episode, we finally finished up our 3-part showcase of RWBY Volume 7. So for now, this episode, we are finally getting around to a showcase that is long overdue, and that is Showdown Bandit Wave 2. So as you can see, we have Miss Undertaker, the Banker, Dr. Carver, and Penny. Okay, so you're probably wondering, where the hell has this been? You said you were going to work on this last year. What happened? Well, Shoreline, a whole bunch of shit happened. It happened. I was getting around to working on this. I promise you guys, I was working on this as much as I could, but then, like, other projects came up, such as doing showcases like Devil May Cry 5, Avengers, RWBY Volume 7, The Mandalorian, not to mention some other Let's Plays like Kingdom Hearts 3, Devil May Cry 5, redoing Shadow of the Colossus again, and Spider-Man PS4, and eventually came to a point for where I had other project ideas that it came to a point that I had to, like, put them off on hold, and finally realized that, like, okay, I can't work on too much shit at the same time. I need to stop, take a breather, and focus on one objective at a time. So, a couple of weeks ago, as I was finishing up RWBY Volume 7, I finally said that, like, alright, I'm going to put all my energy into this showcase, wrap everything up, and finally get this done. So I finally did, and this came out as the final result. So I'm sorry that this is long overdue. The blame is entirely on me, and yeah, all in all, I'm very sorry for the long ass wait. So anyways, as you guys know the whole drill, we're gonna take these figures one at a time to review them, explain my process, why we have this route, and then go from there. So without further ado, let's get the pedestal out and get this showcase on the road. Okay, so first up on our list is Miss Undertaker. Now, admittedly, when I was working on this character, it reminded me a little bit of when I was working on my Alice Angel minifigures, from Bendy. I'm not entirely sure why, but that was like one of the first things that popped into my head when working on this. So, when first approaching the character, it was a little bit interesting in trying to figure out, like, how to do certain elements, such as, like, the hair and the skirt. In the end, I finally decided to go ahead and do, like, a normal fabric skirt and paint it on to match up with the rest of the outfit. And then to just go in and just, like, put on, like, one of these spare top hats that I had plenty of. In fact, I think I was originally planning on using one of these when I was making Freddy from FNAF. But then it turned out to be way too big for the bear. So I had a whole bunch of these lying around, and I thought that, like, how about we try one of these and see what it looks like. And it doesn't actually look too bad. Not too bad. It actually kind of matches up pretty well. I stuck in, as you can see, like, I stuck in some clay to, like, match up, sort of, like, her hair, like, on the game. And then with her face, as you can see, this is completely drawn. I first, like, did, like, these red eyes. And then, in the red eyes, I drew in the mouth. I then went back in for a Sharpie, drew in the eyes, then painted, and then did, like, the little white paint added into the eyebrows, and then, like, the little cheeks that, admittedly, I keep forgetting because I'm focusing on a majority of the face that I keep forgetting those minor details, but when I check it again, like, I always check each of these to make sure it's all accurate, and then when I go back and realize that, like, I know what to do. So, I went back and fixed that up. The torso is, I did it in different layers, so I first did, like, the gray as, like, the main base. I then went back and added in the black for sort of like the corset that I continued on with the back. But as you can see, I surprisingly managed to add in these red lines. Ew. I was going to say that they actually stayed on, but turns out, nope. Admittedly, I'm not surprised. Not surprised about that. But I went back and did the red lines around the back. Admittedly, I almost forgot about the red line towards the back, but then I double-checked it. I don't know if you can fully see it well, but there's another red line, like, on the waist, on, like, where the waist is supposed to be for the legs, so we added that as well. And then with the tie, this is actually two different blacks, so this is, like, normal acrylic black, and then the tie itself is the black acrylic marker I use, and admittedly, when you, like, compare this black to, like, a normal black minifig piece, it actually kind of matches up pretty well. It blends up pretty nicely. So, if this thing wasn't a marker, I probably would have used him more often to really blend it all together. Then I carefully drew in this skull, and this little skull that she has on there. Amazingly, I had to do it once, once, and it was a case for where once I finished it, it was just like, all right, no touching, I don't want to ruin this. And so it came out pretty good. There's a little bit of detailing on like her arms, like you see like like her shoulders, and then like these little joints areas to give the idea that that the puppet's moving its arms. You can kind of see that the legs and the arms and the face are different colors. It was because that so when first looking at Miss Undertaker, it was the same case for where with Oscar, for where I kept seeing different photos of like different skin tones for Miss Undertaker. Like some of them showed it as more of a yellow, some of them showed up as like a green, and eventually it came to a point where it's just like, okay, hey, how about we mix the two together and try to see if we can come up with our own skin tone, and I think this came out pretty nice. Only flaw is that I accidentally forgot the legs, and I didn't realize that until after the paint had dried, and I forgot exactly how much, like, green and yellow I put in together, so I was just like, damn it. So, unfortunately, that was a bit of an oops. But luckily, this green kind of matches up with the rest of the color, with, like, the rest of the minifig. It's darker, I will admit that, but in the way, it at least does match up, and give an overall representation of the character. And I'll show you guys, something else I did. You can see underneath, hang on, let me reposition the light so you can get a better look. As you can see, I actually did some detailing on top of the feet. This is something I've never done before, and it's mainly because it's super tedious, and also because of the way of how the minifigure is positioned, you can't even see it. And so it's always been a case where it's just like, what's even the point? But I wanted to give it a try to see how that turned out. And aside from the paint coming up a little bit on the legs, it's not too bad. It still, like, matches up with the rest of the character, and overall it came out pretty good. So, amazingly, this minifigure wasn't too difficult to make. In fact, all of these characters weren't quite as difficult as I thought it would be to make. And again, I wish I could fix like, the coloration on the arms and legs, but anyway, this is a learning experience, and so that way I can prepare for better in the future. Next up on our list is the banker. So one of the things that I'm going to point out right off the bat is that I can't fully bend his arms anymore. There's some articulation in this arm, but it's mainly up and down, and maybe with this one, yeah, you can see like slight movements here, and at first this was my complete accident, for what happened. I legitimately had this in this position when I was working on the torso, because I didn't remove the arms, but afterwards, I then double-checked on this character and realized that, like, in a way, this kind of works, because he's mostly in this position. Like, if you played the game, or at least seen some videos of it, his arms are usually, like, on like, his little desktop mostly. So, in a way, this actually turned out pretty accurate of what I was aiming for the character. So, it was an accident, but in a way, it kind of worked. And with the rest of the torso, or so, I did the same thing that I did with Undertaker, for I did one color first, like this light blue first. But then I also added in, like, the detailing, so I know of, like, how much I would need to put on. Then I went back and used this old navy blue that I had lying in the bin, lying in my art bin, that I had for a while, but stopped using it after a period of time, but I still had it, and there was still some paint inside, so I decided that, like, that's actually a good color for the banker. Let's go ahead and use it for him. So, it was a little tedious of painting this tie without messing up, like, sort of the outline detailing, but once I managed to get that done, the rest of it was pretty straightforward on adding in, like, these little buttons, and also the belt. With the arms, you can see, like, again, he's also got, like, the joint detailing, as well as these small little buttons of what position his hand is supposed to move. Speaking of hands, I decided to keep, like, this little detailing on here. I still have no idea where that came from. I think I might have accidentally hit it with one of my brushes by complete accident, but I decided to keep it on because it kind of looks cool. The legs, I just painted in black. There's some articulation into it, but like with the arms, there's not really a whole lot. And in a way, that's kind of so far what the character is, because he's mostly just standing up in his little bank station. Like, we don't see the rest of his body, we just mainly see the top part of him. So the rest of it, I just pretty much just went ahead and painted over it without removing the parts. And then the detailing, as you can see, again, I've added in like the joints on the sides, and the rest of it was pretty easy, but just making sure like all the detailing was close enough to being like accurate as best as possible, as well as it could. Like you can see on the back, you can see that especially this top part here, it dips down at a weird angle, and this goes up a little bit higher. So that's a little bit weird. But all in all, this came out pretty good. So next up on our list is Doc Carver. So with this character, one of the harder parts of doing this one is probably the face and his apron. So in order, when doing the face detailing, one of the difficult things is that when you look at Doc, like Doc's face, it's kind of sort of in a tallish kind of shape of his head. So I tried to replicate that for a minifigure's head by drawing the mouth a little bit high. Same thing with the eyes, and then slightly drawing in this mustache. Admittedly, I almost forgot about this. I almost forgot about his little glasses until I double checked it again and again when I was working on the character and realized that like, oh, I almost missed the glasses. So with the same marker that I used for Jean, for Jean's armor, I decided to use that as sort of like the lenses for the glasses. And then I took a regular Sharpie, drew out the connector piece in between, and as well as the outline for the glasses. Same thing with his eyebrows, you can see at the top, and as well as his eyes. So with his eyes, I first did it into like two different Sharpies. Like first did like the black eyes first. I then went back for the white, and then for like the small pupils, just in like a standard Sharpie. Luckily with the paint on it, the Sharpie like won't fade off. So that's a bonus. And then like with the Bandit, he's got like this cut that's in the side of his face. That's held together with like, I think maybe they're staples. There's staples in the game. I don't really know what they are, but I just did like a small bit of like gray paint, across it, with this large crack to match it up with well. I will admit that the hairpiece is way too big for the character. Like when I was double checking it, okay, he's actually got quite a shorter hair, but admittedly this hairstyle was very close to like how he looks like on the game. So like with accuracy and like minifigure wise, this would be sort of like a good substitution to like make it accurate for the character in general. With the torso or so, I just did a sort of a base paint in black on the front, and same thing on the back. I then went back and sort of like did this detailing of like his handkerchief down here. I first like did all the coloration stuff. I then went back with a Sharpie and sort of like did these outlinings, so that way it all wouldn't look like just a big slab of paint. So I decided to like add a little bit of detailing on, and same thing with these little buttons, and of course he's got like the detailing on the arms for the joints as the puppets. You can see the button, like the joint pieces down here, but I didn't add like a whole lot of detailing all around it because I couldn't really see it so well in the pictures, so I decided to leave that out. Plus, it's a sort of same thing with the banker, is that we can mostly just see like his waist part, except for his legs, so that wasn't too big of a deal. And then with his apron, I sculpted this out of clay first, and I double checked a few times of like how it looks, because I was almost gonna go with like a fabric and wrap around it, but then when I double checked it and realized that like, oh no, it's actually supposed to be an apron. So I just took like a bit of clay, stretched it out a little bit. I then took some scissors, and you can sort of see like some of the cuts that I did. I admittedly did like one cut, like actually inside the apron, but you can't see it so well, mainly because of the paint. But I also drew out like sort of his stitched pocket. And then, like, with, like, all this silver up here, this is supposed to represent his tools. Like, with the marker, I drew out everything. Like, I drew out all of his tools in here. But unfortunately, since it was very tiny, and because it was a marker, since I was drawing it slowly, the paint accidentally came out a bit too big. And it was a case where it was just like, whoops. Oops. But overall, it does, like, represents the character fairly well. Very well. And I continued on, like, the paint detailing all the way on the back. All the way back for the apron, all the way back to the front. At the front. So this was a character that I thought it was going to be super difficult, but then when I look back at it, I then realized that, like, oh, it's actually not quite as difficult. And I hope we get to see the good Doctor in the future for Showdown Bandit, because he's actually a pretty cool character. And last up on our list is Penny. So when approaching this character, this one probably has the most 3D elements out of all of them. Like, one of the first things I did was sculpting out her skirt. Yeah, it's like her skirt part for her dress, and then also adding in the bow, and then the top part, with the hair. With the hair, I actually did it separately. Like, I first did this part, and then went back and then, like, added in, like, her little pigtails up front. Then I actually painted these in red in, like, the same acrylic marker because I wanted all of this to match up fairly well. This one probably has the easiest eyes because they were very simple. I just did, like, 2 black dots, and her mouthpiece as well. If it turns out in the future that we can actually give her back her eyes, like, later on in the game, I'll probably go back and add those in. But overall, this is pretty much the basic idea of Penny. So, I double-checked the whole outfit a few times, especially on the back, because I wanted to make sure I was getting this about accurate. And turns out I was. So I painted this in like a dark blue. It's not in the peacock blue that I usually use. This was actually another old blue that I had in storage. I think the last time I had used this blue, it was maybe for Syax from Organization 13, or maybe I used that beforehand. But it was one of those old blues that I had for a while, and it actually matches up for the character fairly nicely. The arms, you can see, like, more paint detailing up here, including, like, the joint areas for where you could move the arm, and the arm for the puppet. Because of the lights, hang on, let me see if I can position this in a way for where you can see it. Okay, that looks super weird. You can't see, well, you can kind of see it, but it's very faded out. But, on the front part, like, the bottom part of her dress, like, for the hoop skirt, you can see, like, some of the detailing that I added up here for where I just did, like, a normal yellow. I then went back and did, like, a dark or golden yellow to add in sort of, or like that, and to add in the pattern up front. Unfortunately, when it's in the light, oh god, that's way too much light. Oh god, okay, fix it. Ah! Okay, that's good. But when you look at the lights, it swallows up altogether, so it looks like it's just one yellow spot. So that's a little bit unfortunate. On my end. But when it's not swallowed up in the lights, it does match up fairly well for the character. I drew on like her bow up front, then painted that in yellow, and then added a little detailing of like these buttons, and then like sort of like this waist outline. I added that into like a light brown. Admittedly, I probably shouldn't have done like the back part of it. Because if you because I did measure it up, but if you kind of look at it, it only looks like it goes like behind the bow, and in a way, this kind of looks like it's up on top. So that was an oops. But not too difficult. And then with the legs, I did not do any detailing of the legs at all. I just got some regular white legs, and the only thing I really did was adding in like these shoes. And even then, when you look at her movements in the game, it's mostly covered up because of those giant dresses and dressings for the Western kind of feel. So I didn't really pay attention too much on adding in detailing on the legs, and just focused on the feet. So all in all, the detailing wise, it was a bit tricky, especially of doing like articulation. Okay, can I not even move the arm? Okay, I can move the arm, but I can't really fully bend it all the way down around the skirt, and that's sort of like one of the difficulties of when doing stuff like this, especially when the hoop skirt is made of clay instead of fabric. It's a bit difficult of getting it big enough to where like I can move the character's arms around without getting caught in the clay. So that's always a difficult thing. But since this is a puppet, and a majority of the character I just kept all together and just painted around it. It's not too difficult. And again, if it weren't for the lighting, without the lighting, this actually looks fairly accurate. And all in all, I'd say pretty cool. So again, if later on in the game she does get her eyes back, I'll go back and add those in. end, but in general, this minifigure is pretty much done. Well, that does it for this episode of LEGO Arts. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. So, aside from the fact that this took a lot longer than it was supposed to, I'm pretty proud of how the showcase came out. Admittedly, like, one of the main characters that I really wanted to work on the most for the showcase was Miss Undertaker, as well as the banker and Doc Carver. However, Penny was sort of like last minute addition. Let me scoot the camera a little bit. She was sort of a last minute addition because since I hadn't fully come across this character in my Let's Plays, at first I didn't know sort of like a general idea of what the character looked like. But when I checked in like some other videos of some Let's Plays, and then saw like some pretty cool images of it, I decided to, like, you know what? Let's go ahead and add this in. So for the future, I might go back to Showdown Bandit and do like some of the stringless and maybe the faceless bandit, and maybe some other characters that Kindly Beast plans to do for the game in the future. But for now, the next two main projects that I'm going to be working on the most is Umbrella Academy and the first wave of Bendy and the Dark Revival. I don't know when those are coming in. But now that Showdown Bandit is done, as well as Ruby Volume 7, we can work on that. And also, as I mentioned in the last episode, we're going to begin like live streams of Kingdom Hearts 3 Critical Mode, either by the end of this week, or maybe by next week. I haven't fully figured it out. But once I get it all figured out, we're going to resume the live streams on that and see how much progress we can make in that. And Remind on Critical Mode. There we go. Finally got that out of my mouth. I'm sorry. But anyways, if you guys want to check out like some of our other showcases like Ruby, Devil May Cry, Kingdom Hearts, God of War, Detroit Become Human, all of my other showcases, you can check them out in my LEGO Arts playlist. If you want to see like some of the decals that I've done, you can check them out on my DeviantArt page in the description below. And yeah, that's all gonna be good. So again, thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and I'll see you all again next time in the next video. Bye bye.